Hey, it's another episode of The High Ticket Woman. Debbie Caudle here. Today, we've got a really cool guest. We've got Coach John McClernand, who helps people break free from addiction, emotional eating, self sabotage, and burnout. And he does it by blending neuroscience, psychology, and metabolic health. And he's got a trademarked method for doing that that we're for sure going to have him talk about. He has been through a lot in his life. He is a survivor of a near fatal trauma, financial ruin, can't say that word properly, food addiction, and he's completely rebuilt himself. He's become debt free, he's lost 100 pounds, and he's overcome crippling anxiety without fad diets, just without let me read this correctly, without fad diets or sheer willpower. So, John, you didn't use sheer willpower?
No, it's a finite resource. It's a
Okay, well,
useful tool, but a finite resource.
we're gonna talk about that then. Okay, so he's been everything from a nanotech researcher to a Navy Marine engineer to a globe-trotting mentor, where his science meets spirit approach empowers people to reclaim their health, identity, and freedom. And now he's on a mission to help others break destructive cycles, rewire their brains, and step into the life they were created for. I don't know why my tongue was tripping over all of that, but John, welcome to the High
There's
Ticket
like
Woman.
it's funny because 'cause I'm like, if I tried to read my own story, I might too. And let's be real. If like when I was 20 years old,
Yeah.
you were to tell me like this is what the next 20 odd years are gonna look like, I probably couldn't have even comprehended it. I wouldn't have believed you. Like I grew up
Yeah.
in small town Canada, like a small town. I actually grew up in a little town called Chase on the shoe swap between Salmon Arm and Kamloops
I
for
grew up
this.
in Richmond. I grew up in Richmond.
Oh, I was born in Mission. Actually, I was born in a little place called Hatzick Island at 5 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
So we
It
had to
was
take a ferry to get to where you're from.
a little strip that leads out to it. But yeah, I joke that I was a failure of 1980s birth control, or I was a product of a failed 1980s birth control. My parents were hoping for a girl because they already had a boy, and they came 3 months early. So I've had a bit of a a bit of a rough start in life.
Well, I did not know I was gonna be talking to a fellow Canadian. I can relate. I was supposed to be a boy. I was supposed to be named Mark, and then I was the firstborn, and anyway, I got raised as a boy, so all is good. My dad just he didn't miss a beat. He hunting, fishing, dragged me out to the bush, you name it. Anyway, this is about you, not me. So, John, you have a pretty intense story. You've survived a lot of things, and I don't wanna give a bunch of this away, so why don't you just start where you wanna start and tell us what you wanna tell us?
Yeah. Well, I like to say I haven't met a remarkable person who's had an easy life. Um, and so it's easy to look back on all these different things and go like, why? I couldn't have been easier. But I recognize that I wouldn't be doing what I do today in the capacity that I do it if I hadn't walked the path I've walked. So I wouldn't actually go back and try to change any of it. I wouldn't put my hand up again if I don't have to. I'd like to not have to do some of these things again, right?
You had a choo
I need to take it out of my past. Yeah. Um, it's funny because I think there's this idea that I don't know, somewhere there's this easy road somehow in life, and it's not. I was thinking about if I could just quote a verse like from First James 4 and about 17 and 18, if I'm don't quote me perfectly, but it's right around in there. I'll paraphrase, but essentially he said like if the righteous scarcely be saved. I looked at that word scarcely and was like, what does this actually mean? Because I don't think it means your salvation hangs by a thread. What it actually means is through hardship, um, we're saved. I was like, that's interesting. And I've started to go back and look at my different experiences and go like, obviously I believe that God's in all of these different experiences and he's working something into my life. So maybe I'll say this. I think every one of us, when we start life, we're imbued with some gifts. But we don't know what they are. We're born. People, praise us, whatever they, hey, oh, look, you're so cute or you're good at this and so on and so forth. We have no idea. Then we get to, I don't know, maybe the teen years, and we start to realize, okay, there are some things I'm kind of good at, maybe a little bit lifted up like I did. I go, I'm pretty good. I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm a pretty good athlete. Like, I had some things going for me. I wasn't a bad looking young man. Oh, and the life hits you with a baseball bat right in the chest. and you get humbled absolutely to the dust. Turns out everything you thought was important, everything you thought you had, it was meaningless. Push comes to shove, it really didn't mean a thing. Okay, well, now who am I? What's this
Well,
my
what's
options?
that thing that humbled you like that?
While going through what I went through in South Africa. So, um, that was when I was 29, so it took a little while. I'd had some previous, challenges here and there, but that was obviously the most, humbling experience to go through. Facing death, I was like, "You can't die tonight because my soul will be in hell," and that sounds like a really harsh thing to say for someone who is, I'll say more or less a lifelong Christian, not always that devoted, if I'm being totally honest in the past, but, trying to figure this business out. What God showed me is, like, you're a cerebral Christian, so you're really smart. You have a good brain. You can talk about scripture. You can sound like you know what you're talking about, but you've shielded your heart from me, basically, and that was the lesson in this for me. Then you go through, gain a whole bunch of weight. Okay, I used to be like, athlete, lifted weights, looked good with my shirt off, all this kind of stuff. Now I'm 330 pounds. Who am I? What did I become? Started to hate myself. Like, what happened to me? Where did this guy go? Anxiety. I didn't even know what it was the first time it happened to me. I didn't like, do I call 911? Am I having a heart attack? Like, what is going on? And then all of a sudden there's the fear comes in. I'm out of control. Like, what's happening in my body? I don't know. Do I tell my wife? What's she going to think about me? Am I still a man? Is she going to think I'm weak, a failure? Like, all this self-doubt, self-loathing, all this kind of stuff. And then like, God, why? Why me? Why this? Why can't I just have peace? What is wrong with me? Why won't don't you love me? Trying to figure all this out. Eventually, you kind of get rebuilt. You go through all this hard stuff and you get rebuilt. And then God goes, okay, now I can use you. So now you realize you do have these gifts. I know I do. I have a really good brain. I got it free of charge. I can't take the credit, right? But my dad's got a brain like an encyclopedia. My mom's got an incredible creative streak. And I seem to get both of those, which is pretty cool. He says, now I can use you because you realize you have these gifts, but you realize in your own hands, it leads to your own destruction. So now you'll maybe commit your life to me.
So
And
you jumped really quickly through your story,
I
but
did.
nobody's actually heard your story. I is
True.
are you willing to talk about that at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. I wanted to kind of give a brief nutshell overview.
Ah,
Yes,
okay.
as a coconut sized nutshell, if you were.
Gotcha, okay.
So, because I wanted to describe a little, maybe a timeline arc, I guess, is, we start with gifts. We don't know what they are. We start to know what they are. The life humbles us. We have to get rebuilt if we trust God with these experiences.
Mhm.
Because the other part of that verse in James is, if the righteous scarcely be saved, if the righteous are saved through hardship, what of those who aren't saved? What does their suffering and hardship even mean? Because people can argue about the existence of God or not, whatever. I've done all those debates. I'm sort of past that at this point. I'm pretty comfortable in my belief in God. But if you don't have God, who's a redeeming God, what does suffering even mean? It's only the beginning of sorrows. Because if you've like pushed God out of the picture and said, I don't want you in my life, I'll figure this out myself. Well, now your suffering just leads to more suffering. But with God, the suffering is redemptive. So where to go back to now? What would be most helpful? Well, going through trauma, I don't think anything in life really prepares you for it. I had no clue. I had no idea how I was going to respond. So I was in South Africa. It wasn't actually like church related. I was just with me and my wife. We were traveling around the world. I left the Navy. I wanted to do something different. Felt restless. And in fact, people might wonder, like, why did you do so many things? It's like I couldn't seem to figure out what I wanted to do with my life.
Mm.
Think at the heart of it. And so we were down there working with underprivileged young people, teaching them life skills, helping them work on their employability. Um, and it was really like rewarding work. But it was only about 2 weeks into getting there that I was jumped by 4 guys who tried to beat me to death. And so that's a really traumatic thing to go through because I was a no, like they didn't know me. I didn't know them. There was no connection outside of my skin color. And like I remember kind of being in disbelief as it's happening to me. Like, is this real? Is this really what is going on? Like, why are these people doing this to me? I can't die tonight. Like, it was this really awful kind of experience. And I do believe that he did spare me that experience because I'm still here today.
Yeah.
But it was a really, really difficult thing to go through. I didn't know what to expect after that. You think, okay, this thing happened to me. I'm brave. I can overcome this. I'm just going to kind of move forward with my life and so on and so forth. I had no concept of trauma. I had no concept of PTSD. I'd been in the military. We talked about PTSD, but in my head, PTSD was what you get from being a veteran in a war zone.
Mhm.
I'd been in the Navy. Canada's Navy hasn't really been a naval warfare conflict for quite some time, so my likelihood of seeing active combat that's gonna give me PTSD is pretty low. So I didn't really understand it. Started with getting angry, like really angry, like a lot of rage,
Mm.
and then feeling hugely guilty about it. Why am I so angry? What is going on with me? So then I go to God and I'm like, hey, I'm so tired of being angry. Like I never acted out against people, but I wanted to. I had all
Mhm.
kinds of thoughts of doing terrible things to people. That was really scary for me too. Like, why are these thoughts in my head where I want to be violent towards other people, but in my heart I don't? So there's all this tension. These are the kinds of things that we don't often understand. And then again, going to God, I'm trying to be a Christian, but I have these thoughts of like violent thoughts, murderous thoughts. What is wrong with me? What happened to me? Can I even fix this? You know? Well, one of the answers was to actually forgive the people who attacked me. Now, it wasn't so easy as just saying, I forgive you, you're set free.
Really?
Wouldn't that be nice? So I was actually in Turkey. I was in Istanbul. My brother lives in Istanbul. And this is going back a number of years. He's been there for 16 years. And I couldn't sleep that night. I was like, okay, first thing, I had this one friend come to mind. I have to tell my friend what really happened and where I'm at, what's going on with me. So I wrote him this email like 3 o'clock in the morning. And he wrote back and he's like, I can't believe what I'm reading. There's this thing that happened to me. There's this thing I've been struggling with. And I was like, oh, someone understands. Huh. Okay. But I realized, okay, now how do I forgive these people? Because I could try to say I forgive you. I started to think about what happened to them. What happened to them in their life that led them to a place where this is what they're doing? They murdered a guy the night before they attacked me.
Mhm.
It's not to excuse their behavior, but it's to go, can I cultivate at least some degree of compassion for them? I don't know what happened to them through their childhood. I don't know what sort of life circumstances they were raised under that somehow they felt like this was the appropriate course of action in their life. So every time I'd get angry, because part of the anger is like trying to take back something that was taken from me, I would then try to counter that with compassion. What happened? How did they get there? Would they, you know, and forgiveness wasn't just me saying, I forgive you, but I hope God smites you. Um, yes, it was saying, I'm actually going to trust the judgment of all of this to God because He will understand their hearts. He will understand maybe they are evil or maybe they're broken people. I don't know, but God does. So I don't even wish evil on them. I just want God to judge them righteously. So I'm going to hand that over to Him. So that kind of helped to calm the anger. But then came the binge eating.
I was gonna say, was there a connection between the anger and the eating? And it sounds like there was.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I didn't start, like of course, nobody sets out me like, "Hey, I'd like to gain 100 pounds in 6 months." Like, um, and people would be like, "Didn't you notice?" So here's a tricky thing. When you go through trauma, I had this we kind of at the time I was attacked, there's, like, this picture in my head of who I am, and that's sort of frozen in time a little bit. And so, maybe I was sort of aware, but I was absolutely utterly like, "Oh, I might have gained a couple pounds here or there. Maybe I'm eating a bit more than I should," but, I'm still, and then one day I step on a scale and it's like 328 pounds. And I was like, this can't be real. How did this even happen? So there's this dissociation that takes place, this utter like disbelief that this is even real. And then the crushing discouragement, like I used to be an athlete and now I'm this. What do I do? You know? And so I tried a lot of different things, a lot of different diets, a lot of different workouts, a lot of different challenges. It was like I was trying to punish my way into health. And we can't. It really isn't possible to punish your way into health, and certainly can't hate your way into health. And I didn't necessarily deliberately do it, but somehow I just fell into this pattern of self-loathing and self-disgust, and maybe it was connected to a distorted understanding of God and His how He feels about us and our sin. Just thinking like I'm the most worthless human being on the planet. Look at me, I must be just disgusting to God because I didn't understand what was happening, so I just assumed that God didn't. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
How
so
did your faith factor into this journey from such an incredibly traumatic event to, like gaining the weight and then finally figuring out how to lose it?
If I'm being totally honest, I think I went through the motions for a number of years.
Mm,
Like, there was a part of me hanging on to a thread,
mm.
but I couldn't really see the way out, and I didn't know how God was gonna help me. And so I still kept, going to my church on Sunday, um, talking about good things with Christian friends, putting on the veneer, if you will. But I was very much lost inside. And it wasn't that I had abandoned the idea of God or Christianity. It was that I was just totally lost and feeling hopeless and not seeing a way out. Like the psalmist writes about the miry clay. I was kind of in that place, all the while trying to be a professional, carrying on what I'm doing, putting on a brave face, acting like everything's normal, while just being totally lost on the inside. And I think it's important to share that because maybe sometimes this idea in this Christian journey that like somehow there's always something okay, and it's like I was pretty not okay for a while, but I was hanging on to something. I was like, there must have been this tiny little spark in there where I go, I just whether it's funny whether it was just like not wanting to let my family down, so I kept going to church. Again, I didn't stop believing in God or stop being a Christian in one sense, but I just felt so hopeless. But maybe even just having that lifeline, and then gradually, like something comes into my life, models for me what compassion looks like, shows me compassion, and it was utterly foreign to me. I didn't realize I had no idea what compassion actually looked like. And so that was maybe the start of like finding my way back and going, okay, I can't hate myself healthy. I can't punish my way. And if God was going to strike me down for all of my disgusting sin or whatever I seem to think about myself, he would have done so by now. And instead, he's waiting and extending a hand in compassion, going, will you let me help you? I'm
Yeah.
going to put this person in your path.
I love how you just said you can't hate yourself healthy.
Mhm.
Yeah, interesting. So, I think with so many people, food just plays this role of self-soothing and, um,
Yeah.
the shame, the guilt, uh, how do people begin to break free from that, from food addictions and binge eating? What did you was there I know you developed your own trademark, method. How did you go from stepping on the scale and going, "Oh, wow, how did they get here?" to developing your own method for keeping that off, losing it and keeping it off?
Yeah. I'll go back to compassion. I think it's possible, but immensely difficult to do it by yourself.
Mm.
And possibly one of the most destructive myths is that something is wrong with you if you need the help of another person.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
Yeah. God put someone in my path. And because I struggle with that, like this whole, and it was just misplaced ego, really. And this person gave me insight, compassion, human connection, stuff that I was desperately needing, but didn't even know it. And that was the start. I had to start to cultivate a sense of self-worth again because it's like humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's really just thinking about yourself less. In my despair, I was still making it all about me. Poor me, I'm terrible, it's me, something's wrong with me, I'm so me, me, me. That's part of the problem, and it's like I had this misplaced understanding of humility. So, I started to act in a way but if someone else cared about me, they would act. And it almost sounds a little bit cliche, but it started with brushing my teeth. Okay, why do I brush my teeth? Well, because I believe I wanna have teeth for my future, and I like my teeth. Okay, well, maybe I don't hate myself. Okay, there's this little part of me that I don't mind, and you just start, like, nurturing this spark. The way that we change a belief is we take an action that is contrary to that belief, and we repeat that action enough times that it becomes adopted like, it basically becomes a new belief. We can't just it's not so easy just saying something. We have to act in a it's it's a thought plus an action repeated that begins to change a belief.
So give us an example of an action that might be contrary to a belief we have, because we're taught to brush our teeth from childhood, so most of us, that's just part of our autopilot routine, but there are actions out there that aren't part of that routine that we absolutely need to do to get us on the right path. So what give us an example.
Yeah. I would say it's first, maybe you want to identify what this limiting belief is. So maybe you have this belief, I have no control around food. Or maybe it's I have no control around this food. Okay, let's call it out. This is where you're at. Okay, this is what you believe to be true. Now, the way that our brain works is with confirmation bias for and it's really about cognitive efficiency, saving energy, right?
Mhm.
So it will record information that confirms a belief and discard and disregard information that's contrary to that. So maybe it's not true that you have no control around food because there's probably plenty of evidence to the contrary. There's plenty of times you do behave with some degree of control or restraint around food, but your brain doesn't really record those times. It only records the times and amplifies them. And so now you need to maybe demonstrate to yourself in a conscious way, you behaving with control around food. So maybe you sit down with something. Maybe you have someone sit with you. You go, okay, I'm going to try and eat this food, sour cream and onion chips or something like that. Like I'm going to sit down with this and I'm just going to take it for
Salt and vinegar chips.
salt and vinegar. Okay, there we go. I'm going to sit down with this and I'm going to show myself that I can eat with some degree of restraint, that I can slow down, that I can, because there are times that we eat purely for enjoyment. I think there's this other myth that like we only ever eat for function. It's not true. Feasting was biblical.
Mhm.
Like there are times we eat for enjoyment and socialization. We connect around food. We connect around sharing of resources. Food is so much more than just fuel. And so put yourself in a situation. And if you need some support, have a supportive person with you and just walk yourself through this and start to prove whatever limiting belief you hold about yourself, you start to disprove that belief by acting in a way that's it's a small the key thing is it needs to be small. If it's too big and too much of a departure from who you presently are and believe yourself to be, your brain will also reject that because it's unsafe. But little under the radar, you know, small actions built up over time begin to shift a belief. Um, I started just going for daily walks. And you think, well, why go for a walk? Well, because I need to move my body. Maybe at that point, I couldn't go back to the gym. I used to be really fit. I used to train people. Um, I was so ashamed of my condition. I couldn't even bring myself to walk through the doors of a gym because of what I knew I used to be when I went to the gym.
Mhm.
Muscular, fit, attractive, whatever. Now I'm just fat and out of shape. Okay, I'll go for a walk. Okay. I'm saying that I care enough about myself to kind of start to move my body with some degree of intention again. And just keep nurturing. And over time, these things start to change. It's often not because we want the lightning bolt from heaven, because what we're really asking for is make this easier. Well, how about make it doable?
I like that. Not easier, doable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You often talk about addiction and
Mhm,
emotionally not as bad habits, but as brain-based patterns.
mhm,
So
mhm.
can you break down why we sabotage ourselves, like, even when we
Yeah.
desperately wanna change?
Well, here's the thing that fools us, or not really fools us, but stumps us. I call it the no do gap, right? The gap between what we know and what we do. And this is the thing that like endlessly frustrated me with myself because I was well educated by this point. I was like, how can I know, be in possession of all of this information, and yet behave in a way that's totally contrary? Well, the mistake I was making was assuming that both things come from the same part of the brain. They don't.
Mm,
And so, one of the ways that we can de-shame a behavior, because shame, it's like a check engine light. It tells us something needs our attention, but it doesn't really tell us what it is. And at a certain point, it becomes no longer useful. You know, we want to de-shame a behavior and go, most behaviors in some way are an attempt to meet a need or solve a problem. Okay. So binge eating. Let's de-shame it and go, what problem is this solving? And yes, we naturally want to go, yeah, well, it's creating problems. Stop. What need is this meeting? This behavior exists for a reason. Let's
mhm,
get rid of the story that you're a terrible person and go, hey, what's this doing? For me, it was shutting up the noise in my head. It was shutting up the destructive, painful, angry chaos in my head. I was giving a stimulus stronger than the noise in my head until I was so full that all I could think of was how full I was. Yeah, it was really uncomfortably so heavily full, but at least that occupied my mind and shut it up for all the other noise, right? Okay, well, now that we understand what this behavior is about, and it could be a substance, smokers, I need to smoke. What are you really saying? I need an escape from my, I need some relief. I need a break from whatever's happening right now. Yes, there's an addictive component to it. There's a habitual component to it and so on. But let's look at the behavior because if we're going to change, we can't just say, stop doing this thing. Well, I mean, we can, but you're very likely to not be successful. The relapse rates are very high if you try to willpower
Lot
through this stuff.
lots of proof that that's true, yes.
Yes. We somehow have glorified like the lone wolf who just like grits their teeth and just powers through, which is often a false narrative as well, because almost nobody does that unless you're a psychopath, you know. And by I'm talking like you don't have feelings and emotions the way that a normal person does. If you're a normal human with normal feelings and normal emotions, you're very unlikely to be able to just grit your teeth and suffer through it. Instead, like pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Maybe is that a quote? Something like that. Like, you're going to experience pain in your life, unquestionably, but you don't have to make it harder. And so you go, what need is this behavior meeting? Okay, it's doing this for me. Right. Now, there's a neurochemical component to it. There's a psychological component to it. Okay. Can we give your brain what it's looking for without the substance? Can we stabilize your neurochemistry a little bit? So you can see I have these little clips on my ears, which is kind of funny. They're actually cranial electrostimulation clips. So one's red and one's black, and I'm actually running a current across my brain presently. I'm running an alpha wavelength. So alpha is like I'll call it our flow state or our non-sedative relaxant brainwave state. For me, it helps me to quiet my brain down a little bit. I have ADHD. If you look at my past, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. That tracks. Um, it helps to sort of organize my thoughts a bit better. Um, you can do it with a supplement. L-theanine is a supplement that can help with getting into your alpha brainwave state. Maybe you need a bit of dopamine. Well, L-tyrosine is a dopamine precursor. N-acetylcysteine, can act as a lung tonic as well as I'm saying lung tonic is a broad term. I mean, it can help break up microclots in your lungs. It's your body's precursor, your body's master antioxidant, things like that. So there's some supplements that we can use. NAC can also balance GABA and glutamate in your brain, so it knocks the edge off of cravings. Okay, now we're starting to make things a bit easier. Before we even talk about quitting the substance, let's figure out what it's meeting. So figure out what need that behavior is meeting, and let's start stabilizing your brain through other ways where we continue to meet that need. Then we'll start to disrupt the pattern a little bit. There's the impulse and there's the behavior. Well, maybe there's the impulse, we insert a little behavior in there, and then maybe you still do the thing. But because you put a bit of friction in there, at least it was now a conscious choice instead of a totally impulsive behavior. And you're starting to think about it a little bit. Okay, we're starting to weaken this. And then you know what? Maybe we're going to do a little trial quit. So maybe we're going to go, let's try to go 24 hours or 48 hours or 72 hours. Let's see what happens. There's no pressure here. You're going to try to do it and we're going to figure out where it breaks. Okay. What broke? What went wrong? What did we learn? Okay, we need more support over here. This thing happened. Okay. You had a rough day at work and you had a poor night's sleep and you were totally mentally exhausted and you just got overwhelmed and the cigarettes were on the counter. Okay, now let's plan for that. Let's figure out how we shore that up a bit. And we just start working through this in a little bit of a different way. There's other things, there's pharmaceutical support and things like that as well. But the idea being we approach it slightly differently. Then, okay, what about when you quit a substance or quit food, you binge eating or things like that? Well, the impulses are still going to show up. So now how do we prevent relapse? What do we have to do there? Because we're left with the void.
The trigger, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now we need to sort of fill that. And eventually, you want to keep going. So, lifestyle optimization. Okay, how do we help you now become that healthy person that you really want to become? And there's a part of it I haven't really touched on in too much depth, but I'll name it like identity priming. So it's this idea that we behave in a way that is consistent with who we see ourselves to be. So when I thought that I was a hopeless loser, uh, a total out of control maniac around food, or I'm mincing my words a bit here. I was a lot ruder to myself in my head in those years. Uh, well, I'm actually going to behave in a way that's consistent with those behaviors. There are some ways that we can actually practically, like, almost engineer this process. I'm a former engineer, I'm a former nanotech researcher. I have a science background. I like to go, how do we solve for this variable here?
Yeah.
And then at the heart of it all, though, is I meet people with compassion and with unconditional positive regard. This doesn't mean I excuse the behavior. This doesn't mean I enable the behavior, but it means, hey, we're in this together. Let's figure out what's going on. And now you got some support. You're here because you want to change. Awesome. Let's nurture that spark. Just someone going, instead of being like, you're an idiot for smoking, going, hey, let's figure out why you're doing that. Let's take that story away. You know,
So identity, what you're saying is identity is really, really key to healing. How we see
long
ourselves
term, yes.
determines whether we succeed or we stay stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you feel like you are constantly fighting against yourself,
Mhm.
you're eventually going to get exhausted and then you're going to relapse. And then you're going to go, what's wrong with me? I have no willpower. And you start the cycle again. I'm broken and so on. And then you
We
start,
begin to
"Mm,
define ourselves through these, yeah,
got it. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so for someone who's listening right now who really feels stuck in this cycle of overdoing it, whether that's food or some other vice, what's that first small step towards freeing themselves from it?
Take a deep breath.
Okay.
Okay. First off, what did I just do there? I've actually activated my parasympathetic nervous system.
You've calmed your nervous system down, yeah.
Just, okay, let me just take this moment and try to become present. Okay. I have a problem. I'm not a bad person because I have a problem, but I do have a problem. Okay. I need to get some help. Okay, that's okay. You're a human being. So you just start gently with yourself. So it's I say to people, compassionate awareness is the foundation for transformational change. So it's the ability to see ourselves as we are in our present condition without judgment. Be the judgment of God in this case. I don't mean look, we exercise discernment as Christians. I'm not saying don't ever judge. That's but I'm saying in this case here, put that aside. Okay, and go. So example of compassion, right?
Yeah.
Let's say I come over to your house and you're on the couch. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're in your pajamas. There's half a bottle of wine down, and you got chip crumbs all over your face and shirt. And I'm like, Debbie, you idiot! What are you doing? Like, you know better than this. Are you stupid? You're not going to ask me for help. You're just going to go, next time I'm going to be better at hiding this. I'm not going to
Yeah.
get caught off
For
guard.
sure, John, that's it. I was thinking about hiring you, but no, not now.
Right, exactly, right? That's because we sometimes think, "Oh, if someone just cracks the whip hard on me, it'll change." Like, no, 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 you're just gonna get better at hiding the behavior.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if I go, "Oh, hey, it looks like you had a hard day, why don't you just keep going? Just give her. Just take the rest." Now enabling you. I'm saying, "I don't wanna sit with you in the discomfort, so just keep using the substance to numb your feelings instead of me sitting with you."
Mm.
So compassion goes, "Hey, looks like you had a rough day. Can I sit beside you? Cool. Do you wanna talk about it? If not, I'll just sit here and be with you." Okay, what's going on? When you're ready, you can tell me if you want to. Either way, I'm just going to sit with you. Oh, I feel some human connection. You know, yeah. Now it's safe to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
right? I've created this.
Not just be judged. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, the stuff that people open up about, like again, the stories that I've heard, the stories that I've lived, the stories that I've heard, and I just go, oh, no wonder you're smoking, or no wonder you have a problem with alcohol. This isn't be saying is good, but it's like it makes sense
Yeah.
because you didn't have a better solution yet.
Yeah. So you blend neuroscience with all of this, and you have this trademark method called NeuroFit. Tell us about that.
A neuro quit, yes.
NeuroQuit, not neuro.
I
Well, that would have been a cool name, but NeuroQuit.
that's true. Yeah, yeah. So, and I kind of have 2. I have neuro shift and neuro quit. So neuro shift is more, I want to get healthier. Neuroquit is I want to break free from, let's say, a substance use disorder.
Okay.
And the two, and one can kind of
Different methodologies. Okay.
well, they're roughly the same. They're very similar frameworks, similar principles,
Mhm.
slightly different application.
Okay.
So, we'll talk about NeuroQuit though, and you won't see a website yet because at the time of recording this, I've been doing this for over a year, but I'm still, as a scientist, I still consider myself in like the developmental phase, the beta phase. But I'm having a lot of success with it, which is cool. But I do have to clinically validate it before I can really go like But you can take some principles from this. So we start with neurochemical stabilization, exactly as I described. What are some ways we can meet the need that your brain is looking for without using the thing that you want? So let's preempt that, right? Because your brain's not going to just suddenly stop looking for that thing. Okay, so how do we do that? And it's an individual case by case basis. There's some things we can use depending on if it's alcohol, if it's cannabis, if it's nicotine, if it's food, if it's gambling, if it's pornography. Like there's different ways to do this. Other part of it is to like ease some of the discomfort that's going to come from withdrawal because you will have an uncomfortable withdrawal period. Depending what it is, will just sort of determine how long it is. Cigarettes are actually the actual physical withdrawals are like 4 days.
Mm,
There's a whole other like component to it, but the worst part of it is like 4 days.
mm,
Alcohol, totally different beast, right? There's a lot that's been going on in your brain differently. Okay, so we stabilize your brain first, right? Then we go, let's start to put some friction into the habit. Let's just make it a little more difficult to engage in. Now, of course, if you're really in a destructive place and you need to go to rehab, this isn't for you. Just to be very, very clear. Like if you're in a place where you're at risk of harming yourself or harming others or things, you want to check into a clinic.
start there, yeah. Mhm.
This is more like, hey, I this isn't like ruining my life and putting myself or others at risk in that context, but it's enough that it's a real problem and I can see where this could go.
Mhm.
Just to clarify for people. Okay. So now we start to bring in habit friction. Okay. Again, impulse, insert a different behavior, and then maybe choose that. Now you're going from impulse to choice. Okay. You might still not like your choice. You might still choose to use the substance, but it's now becoming a conscious choice. You're starting to think more about it. Now let's support that. Let's figure out who it is you want to become. Because you came to meet with me because you said, hey, I have a problem and I want to become a better version of myself. Awesome. Let's document that. Tell me about this picture you have in your head. Because there's nothing that's been created that wasn't first a picture in your head, right? We start with a picture in our head, but we so often have this picture and then we just kind of cast it aside. I'm like, let's capture this. Who do you want to become? Tell me about it. Create a real visual. Okay, let's take it a step further. I want you to read it out loud to me. I want you to hear this picture spoken out loud in your voice. I want to start to create an imprint of this person because, again, if we can see the person that we want to become, we can start to nurture this because we have so many cues in our world that tell us to use vices. Okay, smoking's a lot more subtle, but alcohol, food, there's all kinds of sexualization. It's all there.
Yeah.
Phones, like, online gambling, whatever.
Yes.
It's
Yeah. We
so
can turn almost anything into an addiction.
Yeah, yeah. So we need to
Yes.
nurture that. We need to see it every day. We need to hear it every day. Okay, so we have that. So we develop this is who I'm working towards. And we'll use appropriate language, not say I am this thing because your brain will understand you're not yet. But
Mhm.
I'm working towards, I'm becoming this thing. I'm going in this direction. Yes.
Mhm.
That is true. Your brain will accept that. It won't accept that. Starting today, I'm a non-smoker or I'm a non-drinker or whatever. It's like your brain will reject that. It knows it's not true. But we're going to nurture it. We're going to strengthen it. And then again, relapse prevention. Okay. I've managed to break free. We've done our trial quits. We've stored things up. Now we're ready to really let the rubber hit the road and see what happens. And again, even if relapses occur, that's okay. We've just learned something. What more needs to, because actually about 8 to 12 weeks after quitting a substance, there's often a rebound relapse. It's not inevitable. And if we know that it's possible and why it occurs, we can head it off. But the initial excitement of your success begins to wear off. Because in the beginning, that willpower. I'm determined. This feels good. Look at me winning. Yes, I'm doing this. Yes, I've got my life back. But then real life comes back in. Life is busy. Life is stressful. Life is challenging. But now the sort of the dopamine high of your win or your victory over the substance begins to wear off. So don't let go of support like after 6 weeks because you feel like you got this. And it's not to say that's inevitable. Let's be aware, hey, the risk of relapse continues as time goes on. It just shows up in different ways. And then lifestyle optimization. We got the void. You took this thing out of your life that was a big part of your life. It's left a void in your life. How do we fill that? What are we going to do? Hey, you want to be healthier? Let's be healthier.
What's how long is your program? So from beginning to end, if people work with you, what time frame are they
Yeah.
looking at? Or is it sort of unique to each person?
I'd love to say it's 12 weeks because that's a handy number. And it can be. It can be shorter than that for some people, but it can
Mm.
also be longer. And so the reason I really like I don't want to say it like it's as long as it needs to be, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
The reason for this being is because everyone's journey away from a substance use disorder or an addiction is a little bit different. And so if you somehow think it's 12 weeks and if after 12 weeks I'm not free, that no, your journey's
Yeah.
so what I do instead is I go, this is phase one. When we reach these benchmarks, then that tells us we can move into phase two. When we see these benchmarks, now we're ready for phase three, and so on. And so I have a series of benchmarks from phase one to phase two to phase three and so on that lets us know when we're ready to go to the next phase.
How many phases?
5 phases. So
Five.
neurochemical stabilization, habit disruption, and I have I want to come up with better names for it, but anyways, it's habit friction, habit disruption, um, identity priming, because we can't always go deep dive into identity right off the hop. Right off the hop, we just need to stabilize things. We're not
Mhm.
totally ready for it yet. But as we start to walk down this road, now we're ready to talk more deeply about what it is we want to move towards. And alongside the identity priming, we start doing trial quits, and then we start shoring things up from phase one and phase two. You know, phase four again, relapse prevention, and phase five, lifestyle optimization.
You've come a long, long way from stepping on that scale and realizing that you were, what was it, 332 pounds?
Yeah,
Yeah.
320 pounds. Yeah, yeah.
320 pounds. You've come a long way from there. And obviously you've done a lot of research to back up, your methodology. If you don't have a website up and running yet, how do people reach out to you if they wanna work with you?
Oh yeah. So I'm also a health coach and a fitness and nutrition coach, and so
Well, I mean, that
oftentimes
makes
it's just
total sense that you are, so, yeah, how do people
so
find you?
I joke I got lots of pieces of paper with my name on it, right? So I mean, I work in kind of multiple domains, and that's so from like sleep. I'm a sleep science counselor. I'm an addictions counselor. I'm a fitness trainer, a nutritionist, a board certified health coach. Because really, honestly, it's like, hey, I need help with this thing. Cool. I'm a coach. I just have the so freedomnutritioncoach.com. That's a website where you can find me.
Say it again,
Where's my contact? freedomnutritioncoach.com. No,
freedomnutritioncoach.com.
and I have to be honest, I do have to update some of the information on there, but it's a great way to find me anyways. Uh, what I can tell you is like any at this point, people who come to work with me, everything's custom. I'm going to work with you as an individual. I'm going to work off of a framework and some principles, but everything's custom to the individual. I don't really do group coaching right now. I do one-on-one coaching because this kind of stuff requires individual attention.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many things that I could ask you here, and, I know we've barely touched the surface on what you've been through in your own personal story and the transformative, process that you went through. But what I think what's really, really clear to me is that you got really, really intentional about changes that you wanted to make in your life, and where you didn't have the answers, you went out and got them. And now, really, this everything you're doing is the culmination of your own personal journey.
It really is. That's why I say I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today if I didn't go through what I went through. And the other thing is, I've worked with I don't know 1,500 plus clients. Like I've worked with a lot of people, and
Mhm.
so a lot of it is also, hey, let's put this into practice. Let's see what happens. Let's see where it breaks. I'm an engineer and a scientist at heart. I still am in a sense. I'm just working in a different domain, and I think it's why I seem to work really well. Is or what I do well is integrate multiple domains, and I take a sort of a different approach than if I was purely trained in psychology or purely trained as a counselor or things like that. I bring a diverse body of life experience into it. So I will work with people who don't have a faith, and that's okay too. But of course, if you do, it sure makes it easier because why not? Hey, if you got access to a higher power, why not tap into that as well? And yeah, I guess if I was to tie it up in a neat little bow, I don't know what I'd say. You're not broken. You just need some help.
You just need some help. So, with everything you lived through, Jonathan, what does true freedom mean to you now?
It's a big question. I guess I get to live um, without fear that I'm going to destroy myself.
Mhm.
Because if you've ever struggled with this kind of stuff, you that's probably what I'm gonna ruin myself, and I don't know I don't see a way out of it. I don't want it. I'm free from that. I don't live a perfect life. I don't live a flawless life. I don't live like a monk in the I got 2 kids, I got a wife, um, day-to-day struggles, I run a business, so we do this in real life, and it's kinda messy, but I no longer have this fear that I can't do this. I think what I've learned is I'm really resilient. We didn't even talk about the fact that a crippling accident 3 years ago I had to start all over again after that.
But resiliency and identity are key because, yeah, what you tell yourself becomes your reality. Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah. Well, if you could leave one more question, if you could leave listeners with one sort of challenge or one piece of encouragement for starting their own transformation process, what would that be?
Hmm. Give yourself enough compassion to acknowledge your problem without judgment or shame.
Mm.
That's the first step. Be willing to look in the mirror and know that you're not a bad person for the struggle that you have. That's the first step.
And that's a huge step. That's a hard step. But yeah.
It really is.
Oh, wow, Jonathan, thank you so much. I mean, I find it amazing that you've overcome so much and you've gained so much knowledge and experience and now here you are transforming other people's lives through what you do. Thank you. And thanks for being with us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for what you do as well. I know that you elevate other people in their stories, and that's very noble for what you do as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, everybody, you can find Jonathan at freedomnutritioncoach.com. We'll put that in the show notes. And, if you're battling something that is eating you up from the inside out, and as so much of the time this happens, you're ashamed to acknowledge it, you're ashamed to talk about it, but you wanna change it. I always say healing doesn't it takes intention, but you don't have to do it alone, and you've got Jonathan here, you've got me here. I mean, if you're gonna focus on getting rid of a habit that is not supporting, a healthy lifestyle, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, reach out to Jonathan. If you got a marriage that's failing and that needs changing, reach out to me. And remember, keep your heart soft and open. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be teachable. I'll see everybody next week.